Hey everybody, my name's Brent. I haven't made too many vinyl community videos, but I recently saw the tag for the Vinyl Tag 2021 and thought that would be something I would be interested in doing. Alright, the first question was, what is the album that got me into prog? Well, as a young boy, I remember listening to Genesis Abacab. My dad would play it quite often. He was a big fan as well, and I would have to say this is probably where I got my inspiration. Maybe didn't know it at that age, but yeah, prog would come and rear its head many, many years later. And just as a side, I don't know how many people are aware, but Abacab had 4 different covers. This was the first one. Here is the second one. And this one I think is probably the most common one. And lastly, all right, question 2. Show an album with 4 or less songs. Well, as everybody has said in the past videos, this isn't a real hard one to do. I've picked the Van de Graaff Generators album God Bluff, and it only has 4 songs, being The Undercover Man, Scorched Earth, Arrow, and The Sleepwalkers. Great album if you haven't heard this. A little bit hard to listen to. You have to be a little open to Peter Hamill's voice, but it's a great album in my opinion. So that's share an album with 4 or less songs, and that's Van de Graaff Generators God Bluff. Okay, on to question 3. Name an album or show an album with the Vertigo label. I don't have anything in my collection that actually has the Vertigo label. A lot of the stuff I found that was released in Canada was either on the Capitol one or the Vertigo. None of my Sabbath, none of my Gentle Giant, they're all on Capitol or Warner Brothers. Well, I can't answer that one. So number 4 was show an album with epic keyboards. Well, this is a no-brainer. I think a lot of people have mentioned Keith Emerson, Rick Wakeman, but I don't think anybody's really mentioned Tony Banks or Richard Wright. The song obviously on here that has the most elaborate epic keyboards would be the Shine On You Crazy Diamond songs. So that's my pick for number 4. Richard Wright. Okay. Show, is this a prog album? I'm going to say this is definitely a prog album, but some may argue, some may say, well, there's only a couple songs that you could really consider prog, being Man in the Wilderness and Castle Walls. But I'd have to say Styx altogether has a lot of references and a lot of influence by the prog world. And this album, I would call it prog. You may not, but I would certainly. Number 6, show a group or artist from Germany. I'm going to show you 2. Obviously, we're all familiar with Eloy. And this is their album, Time to Turn. And it was out in, I think, 82. Anyways, it's around that. This is a German pressed on the Harvest label. Great album, as all their stuff is. My second choice is a relatively new group compared to Eloy, and they're called Rpwl. If you have not heard of these guys, check them out. Go to YouTube and check out the song A New World. That's gives you a taste of what this album sounds like and what they sound like as well. Great album. This is Rpwl. Number 7, show a prog album from a band out of the UK. Now, this one was not hard. I tried to pull something that was maybe a little on the obscure side, but not too bad. Anyways, this is a group called IQ, and their album, The Road of Bones. great, great neo-prog. Some people like their earlier stuff better. I like it all, but if you want some good, just progressive music right across the board, check these guys out. They're top-notch musicians, and every track, I'll reword that again. Every album has epic tracks on it. There we go. But yeah, IQ, Road of Bones, check out any of their stuff. Great, great stuff. And the next question was, show a group from North America or South America. Well, I was wanting to show Spock's Beard because they're probably my favorite North American band right now. Unfortunately, I don't have the vinyl copy of this because it's literally hard to find, but this is their album 5. I hope they do a re-release because it's much needed. I really can't describe their sound other than if you want your prog music to be catchy, melodic, but with great instrumentation and great lyrics, great harmonies, you know, great keyboards, Moog synthesizers, Mellotrons, check these early albums out, the first 5 especially, but the rest of the catalog is very good too. So this is who I'm picking for my North or South America band, Spock's Beard. All right, show a prog gateway album. Well, this one was a no-brainer and pretty easy. And this to me would be the only album that really comes to mind that I think I would introduce somebody to prog, because it's got so much prog in it, but at the same time it is probably the most accessible album that I could think of when trying to pick something for this question. A lot of people have picked this, so it's obviously a popular choice, but anyways, you can't go wrong with the Yes album, or Fragile either for that fact. I just find Fragile a little more uneven than this, but either way, this is the Yes album. This is my gateway album. Question 10, show an album with Bill Bruford on drums. Well, bring this one up again because he definitely plays drums on this. There he is right there. So that's one album. Another one, he does play drums on a few songs. I think only the Cinema shown here. I'm not sure, but this is Genesis Seconds Out. And next we have, of course, this is my favorite King Crimson album, Red. There he is again in the bottom there. And this, to me, really defines his sound of the 70s. And another Bruford album would be Chris Squire's debut. Great album on its own too. You guys probably already know that. And lastly, we got Anderson, excuse me, Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, and Howe. For all intents and purposes, it should be a Yes album, but for these questions, we'll leave it just as that. Okay, the next question. Name a concept album, or show a concept album. This is probably a band that's not too well known, but they're called Gazpacho, and they're out of Norway. And I have written out here what the concept is about, because it's a little easier to read because it does get kind of in detail. So I'm going to dumb it down just a bit. But anyways, right from the website, it is described as, there's an intentional part of us that lives inside our minds and separates us from our consciousness. The band calls it the fireworker or the space cowboy. It's an internal and unbroken life force that survived every generation with a new version in each of us. It's evolved alongside our consciousness and it can override us and control all of our actions. In order to get us to do what we want, the fireworker will silence the parts of our mind that feel disgust or remorse so that we're unable to stop it. Kind of a neat topic, and yeah, if you've never heard of gazpacho, please check them out. I don't think you'd be disappointed. It's more of an art rock prog kind of a sound, but nonetheless still very, very good. Okay, on to question 12. Show a female prog artist or band with a female lead. This is a group that not too many people have heard of, but they're called Pentangle. And they're, if you go to progarchives.com, they're labeled as folk prog. And the girl's, or the woman's name on here is Jackie McShee. She doesn't have an exceptionally different voice from anybody else, but other than Renaissance, this is the only one I could really think of that had a female lead. I mean, she's not a bad singer by any means. I only have this album on vinyl. I got a few on the CD, but this one's called Cruel Sisters. If you see it cheap, it's always cheap. Pick it up, because it's, if you like prog, you'll like this too. If you like folk, you'll like it too as well. But that's Pentangle. Okay, what's the next question? Show a prog solo album. Well, I'm going to show two. And this, of course, is Steve Hackett's first solo album, Voyage of the Acolyte. And boy, does this ever sound like mid-70s Genesis. You could really tell and hear his influence on the band at this time, and it's too bad that he wouldn't have stuck with them for longer, but, you know, as an artist, I guess we all want to branch out there and do our own thing. Great, great album. Another one, if you see, pick up. And this next one is a newer one. It is the guitarist and main songwriter from a group called Anathema, and this is Daniel Cavanaugh's solo album called Monochrome. Ugh. It's a lot like Anathema, a little bit more laid back, but you can tell where they get their songwriting from, because it sounds very much in the same vein. But that's a great thing. Check this one out. The song The Exorcist is mind-blowing. Anyways, this is This is Daniel Cavanagh's album Monochrome. And question 14 was show your favorite Roger Dean cover or artwork of another prog cover. Well, everybody showed Roger Dean. I've already showed you at least one in there that's got a copy of his, but I want to go with something completely different. I'm not sure if this is Hypnosis or who it is, but this album cover by Jethro Tull has always struck me as being quite starking, and I've always liked it. So that's going to be my choice for that question. All right, show an album that was released in 1971. Well, of all the videos I've watched out there, I haven't seen anybody mention this album, which may be a good thing. It's not one that I think many people would remember from 71. It's kind of overshadowed by a lot of the big ones, but this is Islands by King Crimson. And this is the, I don't know if this is right Canadian only or if it's North American, but we had a different cover than the usual Star Space Scene that is on the UK version. This album is extremely hard to find clean. The white just seems to almost magnetize the dirt, but the copy I've got here is pretty clean. Anyways, this is a 1971 pick, King Crimson, Islands. All right, the next question, 16, is show a live album. I'm going to show you two. This is from a group from Montreal, Canada called Mystery. And this was released a couple years ago. And this is an album is called Live in Poznan. And it's a 4-record set. And if you're not familiar with Mystery, check them out as well, because you won't be disappointed. They're pretty laid back in their prog, but great musicianship, and I don't think anybody would be disappointed or offended listening to them. I recommend them very, very much. Anyways, this is their album, Live in Poznan. And secondly, I'm going to pick the official Gentle Giant live album, which I believe is actually called Playing the Fool. I can never remember that. This album, you guys, kicks ass. If you have not heard it, then I suggest you run out and find this. Go to YouTube, listen to it. It is one of the most best recorded live recordings of a concert I've ever heard. And the musicianship on this is so tight. This is one you need to hear. Okay, next question. Show the last prog album you purchased or were gifted. Well, I got this last week, and this, of course, is Peter Hamill and his album Over. And those who don't know, Peter Hamill is the lead singer and main songwriter for Van de Graaff Generator. This doesn't really sound a lot like Van de Graaff Generator, but at the same time it does. Still got his trademark voice, and like I said, talking about God Bluff earlier, if you're easily offended by high screechy vocals that go up and down from high to low, then maybe it's not for you, but don't let that stop, because he's a hell of a lyricist, poet, and he's not a bad musician either. So check them out. And this actually would be a pretty good place to start if you're unfamiliar with his work. All right, show a prog album released within the last 25 years. I'm going to show you a couple of different ones. This first one is a group called Life Signs, and this is their third album, Gratitude. This is their third album, Altitude, sorry. I'm planning to have a review up on the channel in the next couple of days or so. These guys are along the same lines as Mystery. Just good, progressive, straightforward, progressive rock. Nothing flashy, but very memorable, very easy to digest, and some of the greatest musicianship you'll ever hear. Definitely check that out. Another one, and the reason I'm showing this is because they're hard to come by, and this is by a group called Angloguard, and I've never seen any of their vinyl. This is their second album, I believe, called Epilogue. It's purely instrumental. They're from Sweden, so there's no vocals on it. I love that cover, incidentally, too. Could have picked that for my favorite cover question, but would look probably a lot better on vinyl. So check these guys out. They're called Angloguard. And another one, these guys are from Australia, and they're called Anubis, and this is their latest album, Homeless. I recommend you check them out, too. They've got, I want to say, 6 studio albums. Great cover, too. I love that cover. Okay. Question 19. Show a prog album with an incredible guitar solo. Well, I've noticed a few people have picked this one out. That, of course, is the guitar solo from Steve Hackett on Fifth. You can't beat it. It's undeniably probably the best prog guitar solo out there. But I have another one too that I've picked. And this is more recent, and this is by Guthrie Govan on Stephen Wilson's third solo album on a song called Drive Home. Check that guitar solo out, guys. It will blow your mind. And the last question, which prog album is top of my want list? Well, Neil Morris Band has just announced a new album. I'll leave a picture of it here or somewhere. And I believe Marillion is releasing an album this year too. And this so far is probably the two I'm looking forward to the most. Anyways, guys, I've really enjoyed this. Thanks for your time. Take care, stay safe, and stay out of trouble. All right? And we'll see each other soon. Good night.